Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here. Wanted to sit down, shoot a fast market update video for Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrency markets. Before I jump into the content for the video, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And of course, don't forget to check the description where you can join my Patreon for just $7 a month. The more people that join, the more cool stuff I can do, including daily update videos and of course, some members only software. Got to get to at least 500 members to make those things a reality. So first things first, this video is going to be short. I'm going to look at a couple of charts. I'm going to talk about market psychology, and I'm going to talk about why most people lose a lot of money in markets. So first things first, let's look at Twitter and let's look back at a post. Long story short, this is a post I did in late 2019 where I said I thought the bottom would be between 3,500 and 4,200. Obviously that call was spot on. I said once it hit that, I believe Bitcoin would go to 52 to 75K by 2022. Also spot on. Why didn't I make millions and millions and millions of dollars off of that like I should have? Because by the time that bottom rolled around, COVID and all this noise was going on, and I abandoned my technical analysis because emotions got the best of me and because of all the quote-unquote fundamentals. Now, I'm using myself as an example because I don't like picking on other people. Don't do that stuff, right? Don't make those mistakes. I had a really good year the last year. Multiple six-figure year, but I should have had a multiple seven-figure year, right? And it was all because I abandoned the charts and I focused on, the fear of COVID and the fear of what might happen with the economy and all that nonsense. So don't do that. Currently, my take on the market is very simple. I think we are in a bear market. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I think the next bottom will be somewhere between 8 to 12K. And yes, just like when I made this post, while I'm short-term bearish, long-term, I'm still a Bitcoin bull. I still think that Bitcoin has come a long way. I think that it's gotten a lot closer to mainstream adoption. I think there are things that need to be corrected with it. I think there's still technology that needs to be improved. But I do think that it is trying to establish itself as a legitimate asset class. And I do believe that as the volatility dies down, that it eventually could become a store of value. Now, you've heard me ramble and get irate about people in the store of value narrative, and that's because I don't think it's there yet. But long term, I can see young people more apt to put their money into Bitcoin than something like gold. So I do think eventually Bitcoin will be worth between $100,000 and $150,000 probably in the next 5 years. So that's my personal opinion, and it's nothing more than that. It's just an opinion. So if we can get down to these levels, and I think I don't think we'll get there quickly. I think we're talking 6, 12, 18 months out. We might see these levels. That's where I would be really interested in stacking some Bitcoin. Okay, let's look at another post I just did a few minutes ago. This is what I'm thinking as far as the bubble goes. This was a chart that I posted back in March. Felt like we were in thrill with one more leg to go up, and then I felt like the bubble would pop. And I do believe that's literally what happened. I think the bubble popped, and I think there's two scenarios that we could be witnessing. First scenario is one that I'm hoping I'm wrong on. It would look something like this, with 65K being euphoria, this bounce back up to 59K being complacency, and this big move down being anxiety. That's one scenario I could see playing out. The scenario that I'm hoping to see play out looks something like this, where this was not complacency. This was just part of this chop. That this first drop is actually this drop here, and that we get some type of bounce back up to this 50K-ish zone that I could then look to take a positional short on. I still think it's a bear market. I'm not looking to buy Bitcoin and try to ride it up to new highs. What I'm doing is looking for a bounce that I can short, okay? And let's go take a look at a chart, and we can talk about the weekly chart first. We obviously did break underneath this 19-week moving average, the channel, the lower low in the weekly, all that stuff. Our 19-week moving average is up around that 49K, which would make sense if we were to bounce, complacency bounce, right into that 19-week moving average. That would be brilliant, right? It would also likely put our RSI back around the top of this box, which would look like a dead cat bounce and a bearish retest of that box, which is what we got back here in October of 2019, and also back here in February of 2018. So that would be absolutely brilliant if we could get something like that. On a 3-day chart, what we're seeing right now is that we are sitting literally on top of the bottom of this bear market box. And remember, we normally don't come out of the bottom of that box, even in bear markets, unless we are capitulating, and then that's normally a really good buying opportunity. So if this thing continues to go down and falls out of the bottom of the box, I may be looking to buy sooner. But for right now, what I'm expecting is some type of bounce. If I can find a long setup to play that bounce, I have no problem taking that and fighting the trend, but the setup will have to be there. But this does remind me quite a bit of the first quarter of 2018 after the bubble popped, chopped right down to the bottom, and then had a really powerful bounce. In fact, this bounce right here was about 100%. It bounced from around 6K all the way up close to 12K. In this case, I don't suspect we will bounce 100%, but I do think it's entirely possible that we bounce back up at least 50%. If we draw some Fibonacci levels on there, our 61.8 golden pockets right around 51.5. So I can definitely see this having some type of bounce up to the bottom of this channel and up close to that 61.8, maybe even hitting it on a wick and then getting further downside. If that's what happens, okay, if that's what happens, then we can draw some trend extensions that would potentially look something like this, with a target down around $16,000. And if we draw some Fibonacci levels from our low back in March to our high in April of this year, we can see that 27K is actually the 61.8, but that 16K is right around the 78.6. And by textbook technical analysis, when a parabola like this breaks, it tends to retrace about 80%, which will be down around 15 to 16K, right? Again, I think eventually we will go back down to 8 to 12K and retest these points of control. But for right now, I'm looking at this as sitting on support. So I don't want to open up new short positions. I don't want to sell any of the spot that I'm still holding, which isn't near as much as what it was. I did take some profits up around 55K, but I'm still holding pretty significant amount of crypto long term, right? But I do want to look for long positions if I can find a setup so that I can maybe play a bounce. And then when it does get up into the zone, if it gets up into that zone, I want to look for short setups so I can play a potential short and ride that short down potentially under 20K. If we look at a daily chart, our 200-day moving average failed to hold its support. I did stop on the 280-day moving average, but 280 days is not really special. The reason it's on the chart is because it coincides with the 200-day moving average on a CME chart, which you can see over here, it bounced right off that 200. And in the past, the 200 on the CME has been extremely powerful. You can see it got a nice dead cat bounce on it in 2019. We got a nice bearish retest there. Once we broke above here, bull market kicked off, broke above here, bull market kicked off, so on and so forth. So I do think that's where that bounce came from. So I also think that not only was this a 200-day retest, but I do believe it was also retesting this zone of demand right back here. If we do lose this zone of demand, which I suspect we will after some type of bounce, then I think the next leg down will take us down to around 20K, and maybe some smaller bounces before we eventually grind our way down. So that's kind of what I'm saying on Bitcoin. There's really not a whole lot to say. That's, my personal opinion. It's just that it's an opinion. Obviously, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But that's the way that I'm planning on playing this market right now. Okay, so like I said, long term, I still think there's a lot of potential in Bitcoin. So if you're not a trader, if you're an investor, I'm not trying to piss in your Wheaties. Long term, I agree that it's probably going to be worth more, but I don't know, right? Nobody does. But if you're a trader, then I think that we have a bear market ahead of us, and it's a really good time to make money and potentially stack more Bitcoin if that's what your goal is. I hope you'll understand that I'm not being bearish because I have anything against Bitcoin. I'm simply being bearish because that's what the technical analysis supports at this time, right? And most people who have watched my channel over the last 3 or 4 years probably know by now a bear market is where I thrive, right? I remember one time somebody saying on the channel, James, in a bull market, I don't care much for what you have to say, but in a bear market, there's nobody I'd rather follow. And I understand that, right? I definitely trade better in a bear market than I do a bull market. So in bull markets, I'm always worried about somebody pulling a rug out from underneath me. Whereas in a bear market, I feel pretty confident, in what I'm doing. So Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, these are just opinions. Obviously I'm just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, so I don't have a crystal ball, and I could be wrong about all this. And quite frankly, I hope I am wrong about all of it. I was having a good time just watching my coins explode in value, but I don't think I am. But that being said, you should always go out there and do your own due diligence, and you should obviously seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor before making any type of investment in any market, including cryptocurrency, the stock market, or precious metals. If you enjoyed the video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And as always, don't forget to check the description for a link where you can join Patreon for just $7 a month. This is James with Crypto Common Sense, reminding you to please trade safe.